To coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings. My name is John David Wells. We bring you the news, honestly, truthfully. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary. That is not news. That is my opinion, just as valuable as yours. And we debate. So you can do that a couple of different ways. You can do that on the chat room. The chat room is open right this very moment. This is an interactive broadcast. You can call me on the telephone and say, "What giveth?" Then I will answereth your questionseth. And what ends up happening from there is that we have a good dialogue, polite, respectful, and important about what's going on, especially today. It's election day, and that means we're going to be watching this election. And once again, I come to you with the same words I've come to you with on many different elections. And that is, this one is exquisitely important again. In fact, it's too important. We have way too much coverage of a federal government you can't turn your back on. And it doesn't make any difference who's running the show. We simply have a problem in this nation, and we must fix it. And the only way we can do it is by doing things that we're going to do today, which is vote. Whether you agree with Democrats, whether you agree with Republicans, whether you agree with independents, whether you agree with any of the pundits or all the propaganda or not, vote. Because that's how we defend ourselves against a federal government that is routinely listed by American voters as the number one threat to freedom and liberty in this nation. Once again, that's not an opinion. That's the news. And so the only thing we can do, regardless of your politics, is to make our voices heard. And for those people who have difficulties with these elections because they're not exactly sure that they're on the up and up, all we can do is make our voices heard. And that, by the way, runs the gamut. The gamut of Republicans, Democrats, liberals, conservatives, independents, what have you. All of us need to come together and say, hey, these are our words, these are our votes, these are the things that we are voting for and the people we're voting for, and we will be heard. And you do so in a way that makes sense. Pamela Perry is the first person to get through on the chat room. She wins the chat room derby today. Pamela, you said aloha shared. Are you from Hawaii? Because your polls just opened, didn't they? And by the way, we do have a telephone number, 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Let's get together and talk things over. What do you say? So again, Pamela, if you're from Hawaii or wherever you're from, by all means, let me know. Let's see. Gary Abshire says, "Hey, y'all." He's from Texas. I know that guy. He's a drummer. He's a drummer kindred. Anyway, because I'm a drummer. That's why I said that. So this radio broadcast is going to be kind of just a rundown of today's news. And once again, I'm not running anything down. I'm just saying that we're going to be talking about the election a lot today, and there's no way to avoid it. The good news is, in a few days, depending on Pennsylvania, of course, and depending on runoffs in Georgia, the possibilities exist. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put ourselves in a position where we may have to talk about it a little bit more. And then after that, we'll be able to get back to the business of actually dealing with the news that has hopefully much less to do with what's going on in Washington, D.C. I can't emphasize that enough. Washington, D.C. is a place that ignores Americans, that disregards Americans, and they honestly believe that they're the country. They are not. So let's get busy. Let's get the live election updates from USA Today. So election watchdogs reported routine issues in key battleground states today. No major problems as ballots are being cast across the country. Midterms of the first national election since 2020, when former President Donald Trump refused to accept the results, sparking conspiracy theories and thrusting voting into the spotlight. Okay? So we don't even get out of the first paragraph before USA Today starts, once again, not talking about the realities and talking about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not the issue here. Donald Trump is not the issue. Donald Trump has been out of office for 2 years, and he may or may not run for president. We did not hear him announce that he was going to run for president in 2024 yesterday, and so we're keeping our eyes open to see if he does that indeed today. So let's go. Let's see. They're already having malfunctions with Dominion machines in Arizona. Well, we're going to be talking about that too. I'm not exactly sure, buddy, whether or not those are Dominion machines in Arizona. If you have information on that, do me a favor and let me know about it. Send me a link or something along that line so I can double check it. And yeah, if you have information that you want to share with me, by all means, pop a link on the chat room and we will follow it up. All right. So, election watchdog Common Cause is reporting routine balloting problems in battleground states. U.S. cybersecurity officials say they're on guard, but all has been smooth so far. In New Hampshire, Governor Chris Sununu has some choice thoughts about Trump's toying with announcing a presidential run. Trump said he cast his ballot in Florida for Governor Ron DeSantis, who is widely expected to run for president in 2024. In Pennsylvania, Senate candidates have cast their votes, including Dr. Mehmet Oz, who did not take questions on whether he would accept the results. President Joe Biden says democracy is on the ballot, so is his record and the fate of his agenda for the rest of his presidential term. I wouldn't necessarily say it that way, insofar as we all know, the Republican Party is very, very, shall we say, consistent in aiding and abetting the Democrat agenda, including the Democrat agenda of President Biden. So we'll see what they do. Let's see, Biden's approval rating has been hovering in the low 40s in recent months, expected to be a drag on Democrat candidates down the ballot. Okay, so let's get busy here. Mark Kelly, Blake Masters set for their final pitches in Arizona. On one side, Senator Mark Kelly, a Democrat, former astronaut whose wife was shot in the head by an angry constituent. On the other side is Blake Masters, a tech investor and first-time candidate backed by a billionaire patron and endorsed by President Trump. Two locked in what's becoming an increasingly tight race, Kelly's initial advantage in the polls narrowing to a dead heat. This is important for Democrats and Mark Kelly, so important that the Democrat Party, led by President Biden, absolutely backed up on his not one more foot of wall to be constructed on the southern border of the United States, and immediately decided to start finishing the wall in Arizona. And so there you go. Let's see, with hours to go until polling places close, Kelly plans to hit get out the vote events in Phoenix and Tucson. Masters plan to spend election night at the Arizona Republican Party's watch event in Scottsdale, Arizona. Maricopa County, problems have been reported at 1 out of 5 polling sites, 20% of 220 polling sites. That's home to Phoenix and Arizona's most populous county. It's also one of the largest in the nation. It's tended to vote Republican in the recent years. However, President Biden carried it in 2020. Here are the stories regarding the early glitches. Voting got off to a glitchy start in Maricopa County this morning because of widespread issues with machines that count voters' ballots. All of the county's 223 voting locations opened on time, but an hour into the election, voters and poll workers at some sites started reporting issues with tabulators. Officials confirmed those problems during an impromptu Tuesday morning news conference. After people have voted their ballots and they try to run them through the tabulator, they're not going through, said Board of Supervisors Chairman Bill Gates. Not the Bill Gates, another Bill Gates. Voters have the option of placing their ballots in a secure box to be tabulated later, going to another location to vote, or returning later in the day to the same locations in hopes the problem will be fixed. If voters decide after checking at a polling site to go to another location or return later to vote, officials say they must inform poll workers so they can be checked out, according to election officials. That will ensure they're able to vote a standard ballot later in the day or at a different location. Voters quick to share their frustrations. Josh Erb, who tried to vote at the Mountain Park Health Center Baseline Clinic in South Phoenix, said he'll need to come back to the same site once he gets off work. They said we can slide it in the machine, but I don't want to risk it. If it's not working, I'm not going to place my vote. Sandra Tufel went to cast her ballot at the Queens Creek Library around 7 a.m. and encountered tabulator issues. People weren't happy. She said, I'm going to have to trust the system and trust my ballot will be counted. It's a frustrating experience. Here's what you need to know. All right, let's see. Let me let me do this. I have some. I had some video planned, but this seems to be fresher video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow you to see it here. Just a second. Stand by. Let me get all that worked out here. I've got this fascinating little cool, very cool little ability to do video on screen so you can see it right here. And so that's what we're going to do here in about 2 shakes as soon as the commercial's over. This is me waiting until the commercial is over. And now we've got the little spinning circle of whatever. And then that's going to clear. And I'm going to get this video and I'm going to put it on the air so that you can hear the very latest from Arizona election officials about this screw up, this glitch in Maricopa County. You know, this is 2022. You know, why it is that we keep having these problems, you know, is in swing states, especially, that is so interestingly convenient. You know, don't you think? You know, like I said, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, especially where these things come. But already we're hearing that there's going to be ballot counting well after Election Day in Pennsylvania, and now we're sitting here in Arizona listening to people calling glitches. Oh, let's see who this is. Let me see if this is probably nothing here. The Wells Report. Hi, can I help you?
Hey, Top, this is Morgan. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing really good, except I'm on the air right now. I can't talk to you. Can I call you right back?
Yeah, but what about a couple hours?
No, I'll call you back here in the next break. How about that?
Okay.
Will that work?
Yeah, that works fine.
Yeah, give me about 10.
All right, bye.
10, Mike, brother. See you later. Bye. Okay, so that's one of my Texas State Guard guys. So I'm absolutely going to take that phone call. Okay, so this, for whatever reason, seems to be locked up in some way, shape, or form. Strangely, I can't get that video that I was looking for. So I just happened to have another one. So let me see if I can get this unscrambled. Okay, there we go. And let me do this. And let's see if this thing's going to vote. It's going to roll. How interesting. Okay, so I'm going to give this one more try because I have a break coming up, and so I'll get this all set up and play this video from election officials in Arizona in Maricopa County. It looks like I've got the video ready, and so I will be able to play it when I return from this break. Telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Election Day on the Wells Report. We're going to bring you all the news headed up towards 5 o'clock Central Time, 6 o'clock on the East Coast, and 3 o'clock on the West Coast. So what we'll do is we'll have this for you here in just a couple of moments as we continue taking a look at things. And like I said, this is going to be a fast-moving broadcast. If you have a statement, make it on chat or give us a call, 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. You're listening to the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. I was able to get that video from the Maricopa County election guys. You're going to see a couple of guys smiling and saying there's really no problem whatsoever. And I'm going to play that for you so you can make your own decisions on that. But in 2022, I find it ridiculous that there's any problem with this whatsoever. Here we go. Let me run this for you. Hold on. It does help, by the way, if you go ahead and turn up the volume. Bump up the volume, bump up the volume. Here we go. Okay, let's run.
Hello, Maricopa County. I'm Bill Gates, the chairman of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors.
And I'm Stephen Richard, the Maricopa County Recorder.
And we're here to give you an update on how things are going so far with the election. We've already had almost 44,000 people show up this morning, check in, and be available to vote. And things are going great out there, but there's one thing that we wanted to address to make people aware of today, and that has to do with our tabulators. We've got about 20% of the locations out there where there's an issue with the tabulator, where some of the ballots that after people have voted them, they try and run them through the tabulator and they're not going through. But the good thing is we do, first of all, we're trying to fix this problem as quickly as possible. And we also have a redundancy in place. If you can't put the ballot in the tabulator, then you can simply place it here in where you see the number 3. And this is a secure box where those ballots will be kept for later this evening, where we'll bring them in here to Central Count to tabulate them.
So this would function much like early voting functions, in that we would get your ballot back. Once we've signature verified it, we would send it to our central tabulators. Ballots that are in here will already be in effect signature verified, so we won't need to confirm identity, but we will central tabulate them. This is actually what the majority of Arizona counties do on election day all the time.
And just one thing to keep in mind, we have 223 vote centers across the county. So if there are lines at the location you're at or issues with the tabulator, if you would prefer to go to another location, you can do that. Doesn't matter where you go, as long as you're a registered voter here in Maricopa County. Thanks so much. And everybody, if you haven't yet, get out and vote.
All right, so that's what they're having to say here. Let me turn that off. So that's what they're saying so far. Interesting. So what we just heard there, and correct me if I'm wrong, what we just heard was that 20%, 1 in 5 tabulators, 1 in 5 polling places having trouble with their tabulators. And most times people just take their paper ballots, drop it in the ballot box, and then they're tabulated at the central processing place. And the guy just said that's where most of the ballots cast in Arizona are counted. Isn't it strange that they're having trouble with these tabulators in the most populous county in Arizona? I find that very interesting, and I find it inexcusable. Now, that's just my opinion. And it doesn't have anything to do with some deep, dark conspiracy theory. What this has to do with is, all I'm saying is that it's outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. You know, these Rube Goldberg devices, are, shall we say, kind of nuts. It's 2022. The European Union has gone back to paper ballots, pens, and paper and pencil. And for this reason, it's time for us to follow in those footsteps. There are other thoughts about elections too. What I keep trying to advance in these United States is that all voting be handled by Election Day. In other words, if you mail in your ballot, count them. If you have an absentee ballot, count them. And then have those numbers waiting until Election Day. And oh, by the way, anybody that leaks the results of the early tabulation goes to jail. That's how you stop all of this garbage. And once again, not a conspiracy theory here, but I find it ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. The most populous county in Arizona is having trouble with their machines. It's outrageous. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. It's Election Day in the United States of America. Midterm elections, local elections, state elections, county, etc. And they are going on right this minute. At least the voting is. The results will be coming up later tonight, unless you're in some swing state someplace, in which case there's no guarantee when we might find out. Does that bother me? Of course it does. It's outrageous. It's also something that people are talking about on the chat. Gary says, got dad in to vote. He's proud to have skin in the game. He's 90, still enjoys an occasional scotch and cigarettes. Let the election returns begin. Anxious anticipation. Let's see, why aren't all the polling machines? Brad asks, why aren't all the polling machine softwares open source? They say that they're proprietary. It's business secrets. No, if you have a voting machine, we get to know how it works. We get to know what all of the software says. We get to know all that stuff, period. And if you don't want to do that, then stop making voting machines. Simple as that. Do we really trust box number 3? Well, no, apparently not. We're having just the littlest bit of problems with box number 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. Busy week. That was the busy week. That was the big announcement. What was the big announcement that Trump had? Anyone know? No announcement so far. After 2020, it's normal to be suspicious in Maricopa County with them having problems. Yeah, it's become the new normal. Replying to Lois Floyd, thank you. Let's see, replying to Alicia, another rumor about when he will announce the obvious. So we will see. That's what's going on. Welcome to the Wells Report. If you find value in this broadcast, please subscribe to it on the platform that you're watching on. Also, by the way, please also hit the subscribe button, pass it along to all your friends. We're trying to build this in a grassroots fashion. This is an independent broadcast. I don't get paid for this. Well, I get paid a little bit because people have donated. And if you feel like you can do that, by all means, go to patreon.com/The Wells Report, patreon.com/The Wells Report, and donate. It's like $1 a month or something like that. It's not bad. It's not expensive. And if you think it's valuable, please, by all means, help me out. That would be great. I would appreciate that a lot. So let's get back to the business at hand here as we continue to go. It was a snowy election day in Washoe County, Nevada. The county is crucial territory for Nevada and the nation as Democrat Senator Catherine Cortez Masto is fending off a strong challenge from a Trump-backed Republican, Adam Laxalt. And if that name sounds familiar, that's because his father, Paul Laxalt, was at one time the most powerful senator in the United States of America. He was the Senate Majority Leader. Excuse me. I think he was the Senate Majority. No, he wasn't. He was the Senate Republican leader for years and years and years. He was a good man that did good stuff, and this is his son that's running. Mark Picker, a poll manager at DeMonte Ranch High School, said turnout so far is among the highest he's seen despite the weather. One Democrat voter, Reno resident Margaret Smith, said few flakes wouldn't have kept her away. I'm like the U.S. Postal Service. Neither rain, sleet, nor snow will stop me from going out like Santa. Voting is that important. It is. Good for her. Another Reno voter, Jim Lewis, agreed, despite being on the opposite end of the political spectrum. If they like their freedom and liberty, they should go out there and not be afraid. Stock market is rallying on the possibility that the GOP might win. They may retake at least one chamber of commerce, likely the House of Representatives. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was up by 1.5 as of 1 p.m. Why not? Let's go to CNBC, NBC.com, the only functioning part of NBC News. And let's see what the numbers look like. Right now, the Dow's up 473 points. Standard & Poor's up 38.43. NASDAQ up 92.20. So the major indexes are up just before the close. All right, so what else is going on here? Illinois County reports election-related cyber attack, but voting is not compromised, say the officials. Well, we don't have to worry about cyber attacks, do we? No, we don't have to worry about cyber attacks because none of these machines are connected to the internet, right? Sometimes your opinions don't even require words, do they? Anyway, let's see. Let me start over. Champaign County, Illinois, fighting off an election-related cyber attack that's unrelated to actual voting operations, according to officials there, who say connectivity issues and computer server performance are making it harder but not impossible for people to vote. Illinois, huh? The clerk's office believes these are due to a cyber attack on the network and servers, according to Champaign County Clerk Aaron Ammons in a news release. Chief Deputy Clerk Angie Patton told USA Today that clerk's office has been the target of repeated DDoS or distributed denial of service attacks, and that she believes other counties may be targeted as well. But she said IT specialists have secured the clerk's website and election operations. No data or information has been compromised. The election is secure. She urged voters waiting in long lines to either wait or go to another polling place within the county, since voters can cast ballots there as well. So let's see. At the top of the Texas ticket, Governor Greg Abbott faces Beto O'Rourke. Texans have their eyes on the marquee race for governor. Incumbent Republican Governor Greg Abbott runs against Democrat challenger Beto O'Rourke. O'Rourke caught the attention of the state and nation after running against Republican Senator Ted Cruz in 2018. By the way, and this is not anything that I haven't said before, but I do want to point out something. The Beto O'Rourke campaign when he was running against Ted Cruz was brilliant. I am a registered Republican, even though I'm not a Republican. And they called me several times in 2018, and I told them there were real live people there, and I had a dialogue with them. And so on and so on. And so my circumstance goes like this. I was very impressed with their campaign. They haven't done that this time. They haven't done nearly as well this time. It's like I just don't see Beto O'Rourke being able to print through. And President Biden has decided to spend the election day at the White House. He put a lid on everything. That's what the press office came out with. There's a lid on anything the president is doing. Okay. He dropped in on a virtual phone bank by Democrat National Committee to thank staff and volunteers, taped a radio interview targeted at Black Americans, and then said, see ya. He's already cast his midterm ballot, accompanied by one of his granddaughters, a first-time voter. He voted in Wilmington, Delaware. He's expected to address the nation about election results tomorrow, although they are likely to be incomplete at that point. Let's see. Former President Donald Trump voted Tuesday morning, today, for Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Also dropped more hints he'll soon declare a third run for the White House, according to media reports. Trump spoke to the media after he cast his vote at the Morton and Barbara Mandel Recreation Center on Tuesday morning, this morning, according to video posted by the local CBS station, CBS 12, in that city. Former First Lady Melania Trump joined him. Melania, no matter who you vote for, you have to vote, said Trump. And he said that outside a polling station. Trump also repeated he'll be making an announcement a week from today at his Mar-a-Lago home and resort in Palm Beach, though he didn't say about what. I think Tuesday will be a very exciting day for a lot of people. The country has gotten very bad, lost its way, and lost its confidence. Okay, so that's basically what's going on with that from the election updates. And let's go ahead and talk about a couple of other things. The states that will make us wait. Yeah, the states that'll make us wait. This is from USA Today. The battle for control of the U.S. Senate will be decided by a handful of states today, but because of different laws counting mail ballots, final results in some critical contests may not be clear on election night. Democrats are expected to outperform Republicans overwhelmingly among Americans who vote by mail, just like they did in 2020, potentially creating a misleading picture that some states have with their results as they trickle in. Anybody catching a weird feeling of deja vu yet? Anybody? Just me? Okay, that's fine. Just deja vu. Look for a possible blue shift in states like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, says USA Today, showing Republican candidates with large leads as ballots cast on Election Day are tallied first, then showing Democrats narrowing margins as absentee and mail ballots are added to the results. Yeah. So prepare to potentially wait. State law in Pennsylvania does not allow for the processing of mail ballots before Election Day, meaning that mail and absentee ballots can't be taken out of envelopes, verified, or scanned before 7 a.m. Tuesday. The GOP-led Pennsylvania legislature ignored calls from Democrat Governor Tom Wolf and local election administrators to change the law to allow the processing of such ballots before Election Day. Why would Republicans be against that? Why would Republicans be against counting the ballots as they come in? Somebody needs to ask a question. I got friends in Pennsylvania. Maybe that's what I'm going to do here. Let's see. More than 1.1 million Pennsylvania voters returned mail ballots as of Monday. Lee Chapman, the Pennsylvania acting Secretary of State, said counting the Pennsylvania ballots will be a days-long process. Well, there you go. Days-long process. In Wisconsin law also does not allow the processing of mail and absentee ballots until 7 a.m. on Election Day, putting it behind other states that can begin processing ballots weeks in advance. The state's largest cities, including Milwaukee, which counts mail ballots at one central facility, are expected to take the longest to tally. Megan Wolf, the state's elections administrator, said unofficial results might not be complete until the early morning hours after Election Day or later. Arizona. In Arizona, 80% of voters typically vote by mail. Unlike states like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, election officials are allowed to process mail ballots upon receipt before Election Day. This means a substantial vote count will be posted when the first results are released 1 hour after polls close at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. However, Arizona historically receives a large number of mailed and dropped off ballots at the last minute on Election Day. Arizona officials say the process to count these ballots will extend past Election Day. If the Arizona Senate race is close, it could take several days for it to be called. Nevada, like Arizona and several other western states, has primarily mail ballot elections in which all registered voters are mailed a ballot. Election officials are allowed to start tabulating mail ballots 15 days before Election Day, but the counting will continue for multiple days because mail ballots can be received up to November 12th, as long as they're postmarked on Election Day. Jennifer Russell, spokesperson for the Nevada Secretary of State, Barbara Sagavsky, told USA Today, "We do not expect official results until a few days following the election." Let's see. Georgia begins processing mail ballots before the election. Officials expect to have fewer to count this year than in 2020 at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Robert Sinners, spokesperson for the Georgia Secretary of State's office, said officials expect to have a pretty clear idea of outcomes on election night, notwithstanding a very close election. In Georgia, a runoff election will take place December 6th if no candidate receives at least 50% of the vote plus one. That's a strong possibility in the toss-up Senate race. New Hampshire. New Hampshire doesn't begin processing mail ballots until 1 p.m. on Election Day, but it won't have as many mail-in ballots to count as many states because of COVID-19 no longer considered a valid reason in New Hampshire to receive a mail ballot. State election officials expect full unofficial results by tomorrow morning. In Ohio should see a shift to reporting of mail ballots because county election boards are allowed to process mail and absentee ballots before Election Day. Mail ballots received before the polls close at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time will be included in election results posted on election night. Mail ballots in Ohio must be postmarked the day before the election to be considered. Colorado, which conducts its election mostly by mail, historically posts a large share of unofficial results when in-person voting ends at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. The processing of ballots begins upon receipt, and counting begins 15 days before Election Day. Ballots must be turned in by 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time to be counted. Okay. Let's see. Democrat Sherry Beasley, that's who's running. North Carolina election officials expect 99% of all ballots cast, including mail ballots, to be part of the unofficial vote count released on election night. Mail ballots in North Carolina can begin to be processed 5 weeks before the election, but state election officials are expecting vastly fewer mail-in ballots than in 2020. Uncounted ballots after election night will include provisional and military overseas ballots, as well as mail ballots received after Election Day. Okay, so is it just me? Or should our fighting men and women's ballots be counted first? I'm just asking. What do you think? Should they be counted first? Something tells me I think they should be counted first. Do you agree or disagree? Telephone number 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. So that's what I'm looking at here, and I'm saying, it just seems to be the right thing to do if it was up to me. Let's see what else. There's some chat room stuff going on. Let's see. Floyd, thank you. Replying though, just another rumor about when he will announce the obvious. That's where we picked up. Jude Dankworth is laughing, and probably because of my opinions that don't contain words. Yeah, that's. Because some of our word choices would be a bit off color. I'm so sick of this cheating. I don't remember this happening in the 70s and 80s when I voted. It happened. It did. We just didn't know about it. Let's see. Deja vu all over again. I don't trust them. Arizona has issues. We got ID for everyone, but now apparently are too stupid to put the date on the ballot and mail in by election day. Well, maybe that's because the people who have the ballots aren't actually the people who have the ballots. Just a question. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number 817-379-2172. Eddie says mail-ins should be very, very rare when he's talking about balloting. You're completely correct. Mail-in ballots should be rare. Although there are states that do handle their elections by mail on a regular basis. The trick is to count the ballots that are available on election day, and if you don't get your ballot in by election day, and I'm talking about all ballots, then too bad, so sad. You need to mail it sooner next time. Let's see. Until about 4 elections ago, we were able to get election results by midnight. What happened? And then somebody answered, well, it was that Bush versus Al Gore thing in the hanging chads. Gary says he agrees with me. Count military votes first. Paul says any results past Tuesday night, you know they're buying time to cheat. Bet on it. Okay. Okay. Well, we'll see. I'm not somebody that's going to say that, yeah, that's a cheating kind of thing and so on and so on. Until I have absolute proof that that's going on, I'm just going to say, well, it looks a little strange, doesn't it? And I'll put that out there. Richard says true. Absolutely true. And so there are an awful lot of people, about 300 of them, in fact, are running at all levels of this election, who are indeed 2020 election deniers, as named by the mainstream media. So there you go. And once again, thanks very much for being with us today. We sincerely appreciate it. We're going to bring you all the information that we have until about 5 o'clock Central Time, 6 o'clock on the East Coast, 3 o'clock on the West Coast. And then I'm going to sit down with my iPad in front of the television and I'm going to watch the results come in and make commentary there. By the way, if you want to find me on Twitter. That is easy. I'm going to type it into the chat room in case you're paying attention. And that is at the Wells Report. Okay. That's my Twitter handle. Okay. My Twitter handle. Yes, I type slowly. Get off me. Okay. Math and typing. That's just the way it works. Okay. So there you go. At the Wells Report. And I'll be going on all night until I get so tired I just have to go to bed. Now, I have more important news than the election. It's sad news. A single ticket sold in California won the record-breaking $2.04 billion Powerball drawing today. The winning ticket was sold at a service center in Altadena, California. I've been there. This according to a tweet from the California Lottery. The winning numbers were 10, 33, 41, 47, 56. The Powerball was 10. Wow. Largest lottery prize ever climbed to $2.04 billion on Tuesday morning this morning, with a lump sum for the jackpot at a paltry $997.6 million. That's the lump sum payout. Wow. In addition to the jackpot winning ticket, 22 tickets worth $1 million that matched all 5 numbers except the Powerball were sold in 16 states. The highly anticipated drawing was delayed about 10 hours because of a participating lottery was still processing sales and play data. This according to the Multi-State Lottery Association. As soon as the required procedures were completed by the one outstanding lottery, the drawing proceeded just after 9 a.m. this morning. So somebody in California just got $997.6 million. And that means one thing and one thing only. That person will be able to pay his California taxes this year. There won't be any money left, but there you go. So let's see. The IRS is the real lottery winner every single year like clockwork. The IRS is the winner of all of these lotteries. It is completely and thoroughly correct. Let's see what's going on. All we can be is suspicious. Courts won't hear any evidence. It's suspect, and it's suspect Dominion won't let us see how those machines work. They might factor a vote 0.75 for Trump, 1.35 for Biden. Well, yeah, okay. I see what you're talking about. But once again, it's not because Dominion seems to sue people. Once again, I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for that trial. I can hardly wait for that trial. I am betting that the Dominion machines manufacturer, the people that are bringing these lawsuits against people that said, hey, we think there's a problem with Dominion, I'm pretty sure that they're pushing really hard to settle out of court. And I'm really hoping that none of them do. I want them to try these things because the discovery process will force Dominion to put all that stuff in the public record. Let's see. Kelly Lyons, dear friend of this broadcast, even before this broadcast was this broadcast, she says this Democrat, she's referring to herself, is heading to vote red across the board. Republicans have issues, but my party, the Democrat Party, is nuts. That could be. That could well be. So this is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. This is the end of the first hour. Man, that flew by. That flew by. And I expect the second hour is going to be equally quick. We will start with election results, the live election results, not from USA Today this time, but from Fox coming up next. And we will make sure that you know what's going on. A couple of guys are in jail right this minute for doing something to my brothers and sisters who are veterans in this nation. And I'll be talking about that coming up. And also President Biden. President Biden has had a tough couple of weeks. I'll explain that too as we continue to give the results on Election Day. Back in a moment. All right, my friends. Thanks very much for being here today. It means a lot to me. Got a big crowd today, and I appreciate it. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. What do we do here? We bring you the news. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. In other words, we de-propagandize the propagandized news. I make comments. That's not news or propaganda. It's just my opinion, just as valuable as yours. And we debate. So it's news, analysis, commentary, and debate. That's what we do on the Wells Report every single day, Monday through Friday. Okay, Monday through Friday. Not every single day, because I take a couple of days off, because I have to defrag my brain, especially in this election season. Golly goodness me. Holy moly, has this been a pain in the butt or what? Man, everybody panicking on the Democrat side. Republicans are poised to have a very good day today. And I say that, but Kari Lake is running for governor. And what she said today after she voted was, we are going to win by a mile, which means we'll win by an inch. What does that tell you? What does that tell you about the state of play in these elections? So what we've got is election updates. These are from Fox News. Polls opened in Vermont at 5 a.m., kicking off voting for the 2020 midterm elections that will determine whether Republicans or Democrats control Congress for the final 2 years of President Biden's first term. Republicans are favored to win a majority of the House of Representatives, according to Fox News Power rankings, but control of the Senate comes down to several elections that are considered toss-up races between Democrats and the GOP. Inflation, rising prices of gas and food, major issues that voters are concerned about in the 2020 midterms. Republicans also have run campaigns attacking Democrats for rising crime and the crisis at the southern border. Democrats have attempted to make abortion a major campaign issue after the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade, but the issue has not been the top concern to most voters, according to public polling. Key states to watch: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Each of these states have key races that will and results will impact issues including abortion, economics, crime, and education. All right, let me get a fast update on this, and let's see if there's anything else. 45 posts, blah, 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 blah. I think these are the freshest things. Arizona officials in Maricopa County said that roughly 20% of their polling sites were experiencing issues with their tabulators. That's just hours after the election day polls opened. Unfortunately, we had some hiccups with 20% of these tabulators. That's 1 in 5. This, according to the chairman of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, Bill Gates, not that Bill Gates. Gates said the issue arose when people attempted to run their ballots through the tabulator and unable to successfully do so as their ballots are being spit back at them. There is something that I want to put out here. This is a video that I ran last hour. It's not the video that I ran last hour, but it is a video that was available on Twitter. And I'm going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this up for you and let you hear about it, because in the subsequent message that I played last hour, they forgot one small little detail, and I think you need to hear it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make that. Okay, let's see here. So let me put this back here. Let me do this. And then let me come over here. This was earlier today, and pay very close attention to what these guys say. I think you'll find it illuminating. Once again, this was earlier than the video that I played last hour. Here we go.
Board and the recorder run elections here in Maricopa County as a team, and we're very excited about how things are going today on election day. We had all 223 vote centers have opened. We've already had over 45,000 people who have checked in and already voted today. We did want to come out and discuss one issue that's going on out there in about 20% of the vote centers. Again, we have 223 vote centers across the county. In about 20% of those, when people will go and they try and run the ballot through this tabulator, maybe 1 out of every 5 or so of those ballots, they're not going through. Board and the recorder run.
Okay, so that's they're not, and then it's right there at the end. Let me play that for you one more time. right here at the end of the video. Okay, pay attention.
Run the ballot through this tabulator. Maybe 1 out of every 5 or so of those ballots, they're not going through.
1 out of 5, 20% of the vote. 1 out of 5 not going through. And that's in 20% of the polling places in Maricopa County. Those votes, by the way, will be delayed. Okay? So there you go. Hang on just a quick second. Please stand by. Oh, yeah. Hey, Morg. This is JD, and thanks very much for calling me on this line. Hello. I'm doing really, really well, except I'm right back in the middle of another segment, so you have to wait for about 10 minutes, and then I'll call you back. Okay, I can't, well, hang on just a couple of seconds. Stand by. This is important. Hang in. Okay, that was unfortunately I'm sorry about that. I had to hear that. That was kind of important, and forgive me for interrupting the show because of it, but I just had to do it. All right, so once again, so that's an earlier result. So once again, what we have here is we have the Maricopa County election people saying that in 20% of their polling places, 223 of these polling places, 20% of the ballots weren't being counted. Okay, so that's the situation so far. Okay, about 5 minutes ago, the 2020 midterm election cycle saw numerous attack ads from Republicans and Democrats raising the questions whether negative ads work on voters. Political scientists, experts estimate that in general, both positive and negative political ads have small effects in swaying voters, but in close elections, they can make a difference. An advocacy group known as Citizens for Sanity, for instance, launched the messaging campaign in multiple battleground states last month, mocking progressive Democrats with phrases like "Help Charlie become Charlotte," "Mother Nature is a racist," "Violent criminals deserve our respect." There's an idea that a really good ad, or one delivered at just the right context to a targeted audience, can influence voters. We found that political ads have consistently small persuasive effects across a range of characteristics, said Alexander Kopek, a co-author of a Yale study on political advertising. Despite the lack of evidence that ads sway voters, campaigns spend millions of dollars on them. The Senate consists of how many seats do the Republicans need to take control? The Senate consists of 100 lawmakers serving 6-year terms. Every election year, 1/3 of the Senate seats are up for grabs. The Democrats currently hold a razor-thin majority in the upper chamber, 50 seats in the party's control, 50 seats in the Republicans' control, and that means that the vice president casts the deciding vote. Democrats need only 50 votes to retain power because Vice President Kamala Harris casts the tie-breaking vote. In order to regain a majority in the Senate, Republicans will need to pick up 2 Senate seats. Control of the Senate remains a toss-up. Fox News power rankings show 47 seats going to Democrats, 49 to Republicans, leaving 4 crucial toss-up states to decide control of the Senate. These in Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. Okay. There you go. Yeah, that's horrendous. Okay, slavery on the ballot as voters decide whether to amend the language of their constitutions in 5 states. Residents in 5 states will have the opportunity to vote on amendments that could remove language from their state constitution that permits slavery as a form of punishment for convicted criminals, though not everybody supports the referendum. Ratified in 1865, the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution abolished slavery and involuntary servitude in America, but it provided leeway for the practice as punishment for individuals convicted of a crime. Several state constitutions still have language reflecting that loophole, allowing involuntary servitude for prisoners, but Tennessee, Louisiana, Oregon, Alabama, and Vermont are looking to change that this fall. California election results expected to be delayed for weeks in some areas, according to a report. With more Californians participating in elections through vote by mail, the results for several high-profile races in LA may not be called until days or weeks after Election Day. That includes the tightening race between Democrat Karen Bass, a longtime elected official in Southeast LA, and billionaire developer Rick Caruso, competing to become the mayor of the second largest city in the nation. According to the LA Times, final results may take weeks or days in certain high-profile races, including a handful of nail-biter congressional contests around the state and a number of competitive Democrat-on-Democrat races in LA City and County, such as the hotly contested LA mayor's race. We no longer have election night. We have election season, says Mindy Romero, a political sociologist and director of the USC Center for Inclusive Democracy. All right. And then they talk about the top voter or the top issues in the nation being inflation. Now, many people have criticized the Democrats for their election strategies. And that means only one thing. The only problem with election strategies is that if you don't have anything to run on, you have to run on other things. Some of these people are running on the idea that the process is flawed. If you're running on the process, you're going to lose. That's just simple. That's the way things always are. That's thing number one. Thing number two, if all you can run on is the vilification of your opponent, that should be an automatic win for the opponent. And Americans are smart enough to be able to figure that out. Because honestly, no laws are going to be passed by the Senate, by the House of Representatives, by state legislatures to, say, for example, outlaw salacious behavior that either candidate might throw at each other. That's not the point. That is not the point. The point of the matter is this: run on the issues. And the Democrat Party has not. Is it because they're out of touch? I don't think so. Is it because they're in a situation where they simply don't have anything to talk about? Yeah, that's the issue. So all these people got everything they wanted. They got everything they wanted. And once again, it's like the dog finally catching the car. So the Democrats caught the car. They got control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They've got no place to hide. And they must change. The question is, will they change? Well, the president has already weighed in on that. And we will be talking about that in just a little bit, because we'll be talking about the president. Coming up next, there are a couple of guys in Boston that are sitting in jail, and the reason that they are sitting in jail will infuriate you. And I'll have that for you coming up in just a couple of seconds. Our chat room is flying. You can join us. Please do. It's on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. If you're watching this on Rumble and on Patreon, send me an email, thewellsreport@frontier.com. Back with more in a moment. Thanks for joining us. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. I was talking about people watching on Patreon and Rumble. If you guys are watching, this broadcast was broadcast earlier in the day, and you're seeing a recording. You probably figured that out already. But if you send me an email at The Wells Report, common spelling, The Wells Report at frontier.com, please put either Rumble or Patreon in the subject line. That way I know it's you. Because like everybody else, I get inundated with emails. And so I want to find yours and respond. Okay, so that's how you do it, and I would appreciate that immensely. Two men, this from Fox News. Two men have been arrested after being accused of planning to sell fentanyl to veterans being treated for substance abuse at a Boston area Veterans Affairs Medical Center. Veterans seeking treatment for substance abuse are often at their most vulnerable. The VA Office of Inspector General is committed to ensuring VA medical centers are safe for veterans receiving care. This, according to the Veterans Office, the VA Office of the Inspector General Northeast Field Office Special Agent in Charge, Christopher Algieri. He said that in the U.S. Justice Department press release last week. The Justice Department accuses Delby Vladimir Casado Ruiz, known as El Bibo, and Pedro Antonio Sanchez Bernabel of attempting to distribute fentanyl to veterans at a facility over a 3-month period earlier this year. If convicted, the duo could face a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 to 40 years for conspiracy to distribute 40 grams or more of fentanyl. By the way, 2 milligrams of fentanyl is a fatal dose. These are 40 grams. It's outrageous. What these two men are accused of doing is absolutely appalling, said Joseph R. Bonavolonta. He's special agent in the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the release. We believe they targeted veterans who have valiantly defended our country's freedoms and are now seeking treatment for their substance abuse disorder, and plied them with fentanyl, a deadly narcotic 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine. Veterans with PTSD are at increased risk of drug abuse, with the VA estimating that 20% of veterans who suffer from PTSD also abuse drugs and alcohol. Fentanyl has become the leading driver of the opioid crisis in America, and small amounts can lead to overdose deaths. Massachusetts is in the midst of a devastating opioid crisis as deaths from fentanyl climb, said Special Agent Brian D. Boyle of the Drug Enforcement Administration in the release. Today's arrests serve as a warning to those traffickers who are fueling the opioid epidemic and addiction. Close the border. Close it. Close it to anything other than international ports of entry. Do it immediately. Knock this off. This is outrageous. The southern border is a nightmare. I've been there myself. I've seen it myself. I've served 9 months on the border in 2 separate missions, and have seen the same thing both times. By the way, on that particular note, yes, I'm a member of the Texas State Guard, but I'm speaking as a private citizen. Nothing I say should be construed as official Texas State Guard policy or Texas Military Department policy. This is just me speaking. Look, we have to close that border for the sake of all the people that are being literally raped and pillaged on their journey. And, oh, by the way, when they cross the border. Remember the difference between human trafficking and human smuggling. Human trafficking is the sex trade. They just don't want to call it the sex trade. I don't know why. Well, maybe it's because the media is biased left, and the left is currently in charge of the government. How long will that be the case? When does everybody take office? January, right? Yeah. You're listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. More election results, including the president's tough couple of weeks. We'll have that for you coming up in just a couple of moments. Telephone number 817-379-2172. Back with more of the Wells Report in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number 817-379-2172. Our chat room, flying. Thanks very much for joining us. We just told you a story about a couple of Boston guys that are currently in jail. One is called El Bibo. I certainly hope he has a wonderful and comfortable stay with El Bubba when he finds himself in jail for up to 40 years. Anyway, let's see. Some people are saying selling or giving away. Good point. Mike says that. Gary says those two need to be put in front of a firing squad. Why would they do that? Well, because they're sociopaths. They don't care. All they know is what they know. All they know is make money on what is freely available thanks to the southern border. We have to close that border. We have to. This is a chemical attack on the United States. I'm not the first person to say that. That's a sheriff down on the border who sees it every day. This is a chemical attack on the United States. This is poison. This is killing people. Kids, other people, and now veterans too. Really? Veterans take themselves out at a rate of 22 per day. They don't need any more trouble. Can we please close the border now? By the way, if you find any value in this broadcast, please share it with your friends. Hit the thumbs up button or the like button or whatever it is that says, hey, I like this show. Please do. If you want to support it with monetary donations, go to patreon.com/The Wells Report. Patreon.com/The Wells Report. And I'll be more than happy to accept whatever donation you'd like to make. It's $1 a month. It's not much. So if you can do that, I sure would appreciate it. Mike says the border will remain open until morale improves. I don't know how much, I don't know why these politicians want to punish us like this. This is the federal government. Considering that the head of the government is also the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military, it's dereliction of duty. It offends me because as soon as I found out about the concept of what's called force protection, soldiers who protect other soldiers, that's my job. I said, that's what I want to do, and I've done everything I could to do that job. And I got to be perfectly honest with you, I just want to do more. And so when you hear my passion, if you hear my voice in this, and then that explains it. Because these people don't need any more trouble. Let's help them. Let's not give them the opportunity to slip back into the abyss. Please close the border now. The president is a guy who has, throughout his political career, committed constant gaffing. It's what he does. I said so. Even before he was the president, I said, this guy's a gaffe machine. And he's also not somebody who can lead. He is somebody that is a functionary. And that's what he's always been. The question is, who is he functioning for now? Were any of those people on the ballot? I don't think so. But President Biden, according to Fox News, has gaffed his way across the campaign trail in the final week leading up to Election Day. He turns 80 this month. He appeared at an extensive list of Democrat campaign events over the past week, where he had several verbal gaffes. The president referred to General Motors CEO Mary Barra as Amy Barrett, who is a Supreme Court justice. He called Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz a friend in the Senate. During his final campaign event Monday night in Maryland, he appeared to forget the name of a candidate he was there to endorse. And of course, you got that next governor, what's his name? Wes, which sparked the audience to hold up their Wes Moore signs. Wes Moore, yeah, the guy's the real deal, man. I don't know who he is. I can't remember his name, but he's the real deal. Maybe that explains why. Maybe that explains why the president has been incognito in most of this. In a Monday speech at Bowie State University, Biden had an awkward moment when he said the students at historically black colleges and universities are just as smart as any college students in America. His struggles, what would have happened if a Republican said that? What would have happened? We know, by the way, in case you're wondering, George Allen used to be a senator in Virginia. He spoke about Black Americans and used the word macaca in the same sentence, which is the name of a monkey, and he was gone, just like that. But the President of the United States, he's just a guy who's just a guy. And he makes big mistakes and everybody overlooks them. And they have to stop. He's the President of the United States. Mike Rowe was on Fox News this morning. And he says, the President of the United States is the leader of the free world. We don't need spin artists. We don't need people to translate for the president. He speaks English. We ought to take him at his word. But we can't, can we? We simply can't. And then Charles Crow, one of my dear friends, says, the DNC, the Democrat National Committee, should be held accountable for elder abuse. True. Gary Abshire says something too. The last decent Democrat president was JFK. The rest have been bad jokes. Actually, I disagree. Gary. I think that when it came to being a Democrat president, I think that President Clinton did a pretty good job. He kept most of Ronald Reagan's policies intact, and actually came out of a midterm election saying the era of big government was over, and he changed. And there were a lot of people in the party that wanted him to continue to protect the left and continue protecting the left agenda. And he looked at them plainly and said, if I do that, I'll lose my reelection campaign. He did not do that, and he won his reelection campaign. So there are people, I refer to President Clinton as the last real Democrat president. JFK, however, as far as I'm concerned, from a standpoint of what that party should stand for, is the gold standard. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And that man is responsible for us having flags on the moon. And so say what you want. Say what you want. But there are real Democrats out there. They've been essentially hijacked by the leftist progressive movement. And that's a horrible thing. And you have seen 2 years of that horrible thing play out in front of you. And if you are a supporter of President Biden and so on, you got to be looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, did I make the right choice? I would suggest that you immediately engage in that reappraisal for the sake of the nation. Okay? And once again, by the way, I was also watching somebody grabbing something that I said, that democracy is not on the ballot. Democracy is on the ballot. Democracy is on the ballot. If they don't get control of their party and kick these socialists out, if they don't do that, then they're going to lose the party. They absolutely are. By the way, Gary says Clinton had too many shady things in his past to have been president. He was corrupt. He wasn't worthy to be commander-in-chief. Okay, that's fine. I can certainly point at those things, and I can certainly point at the double standard that we've seen ever since Bill Clinton. And we can say 2 sets of rules, and now it's pervasive in federal law enforcement. Yeah. So if you want to talk about a deleterious follow-on to the Clinton administration, this hypocrisy and this willingness to have a dual legal system and certainly a dual political system, yeah, that rests with him as well. So once again, was Clinton better or worse than Barack Hussein Obama? I would say he was better because President Obama had a leftist agenda. He really likes the idea of a what he considers to be a more enlightened form of government, which are these European socialist nations that are falling on their butts right now. Charles says democracy isn't on the ballot, but the republic is. I don't know. I think the republic's going to be just fine. I think the republic is going to be just fine. And the real legacy of the Clinton administration is Hillary Rodham Clinton. Perhaps. So that's what I'm thinking on those particular things. Coming from the chat room here, if you want to be a part of the chat room, go to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. So we were talking about the president and his gaffe machine tendencies. Biden's struggles on the campaign trail included statements that are easily disproved. The president claimed to have spoken to the creator of insulin, who in reality died before he was born. He repeated his debunked claim as to have traveled 17,000 miles with Chinese President Xi Jinping. President Biden also claimed his son Beau died 19 months after returning home from Iraq. He actually died in the U.S. 6 years after his service. He boasted he worked as a professor at the University of Pennsylvania after his time as vice president, but he did not mention that he ever taught a class. The gaffes led to the Washington Post fact checker, Glenn Kessler, to write about the president's bottomless Pinocchio on his travel claims with the Chinese dictator. And by the way, there are an awful lot of people that these fact checkers that are nailing the president as we speak. To give you an example of what I'm talking about here, there is again, we've got this very cool video from Twitter. Let me see if I can get this going for you. This is this is difficult. Okay. So this is a very nice piece that I found on Twitter. I don't know who's responsible for it, but check this out.
These plants down all across America.
He's talking about oil and coal.
So we just wanted to be very clear on that, which is why we put out a statement. It seemed like there was some confusion on that. And so, I want to say this. It was, some of you were there. It was loud and hard to hear.
We're going to be shutting these plants down all across America.
I think, or maybe not exactly what was being said, but I currently don't want to get into punditry from here and why we did it or did it on TV. But I spoke to this over the weekend. The president's words, we believe, were twisted.
We're going to be shutting these plants down all across America.
Yeah, so you can see that there are problems with our president of the United States, and you can also see the strain on Karine Jean-Pierre. She's having a really tough time with this. And once again, we simply can't allow a president in this particular shape to be elected in this republic again. And of course, that creates an interesting problem. For example, Donald Trump is getting long in the tooth too. And so we have to consider all of these things as voters. Now, there's a big difference between the age of Joe Biden and Donald Trump. That's true. There's a big difference there. But the thing about it is that the president of the United States is infirm. And his infirmity has to do with his mental process. That is disastrous. Disastrous. And I often talk about the Presidium. The Presidium is the decision-making force, or was the decision-making force behind the premier of the Soviet Russia, of the Russian Soviet state. And they would make all the decisions, and the general secretary of the Communist Party and the Soviet premier were all figureheads. And they made all the decisions. Well, who is in this American Presidium behind President Biden? Who is it? Who are these people? Did you vote for any of them? Maybe you did in previous elections, but I'm pretty sure that you did not vote for an awful lot of people making decisions in the Biden administration. Yeah. And Diane says, tough time covering up their true intentions. Yeah. Hey, Diane, let me double check something here. I think you started our show today. Yeah, no, that was Pamela Perry. All right, Diane. So anyway, Diane says tough time covering up their true intentions. Completely and thoroughly correct. Mike Rowe, the President of the United States can speak for himself and should. He's the President of the United States, the leader of the free world. We should take him at his word. Wow. So there are other things. I will share those with you imminently as we continue on this election day. After the top of the hour, we'll bring you more election updates as they lay upon the table on this 8th day of November, year of our Lord 2022. This is the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Election day in progress. And what does that mean to you? Well, it means that in 1 hour and 12 minutes, the first polls will close in the United States in what is easily the most consequential midterm election this nation's ever seen. And I have trepidation. I do. It is my hope that the same forces that were in play in 2020 are hindered to the point where people can get to the end of this election and not feel the same way about it as many people do about the 2020 election. Once again, I'm not casting aspersions on the 2020 election, but there are an awful lot of people in these United States that are. And those very same, and some of those people, 300 in fact, are running for office. What if they're all elected? What if that happens? Well, that tells you something. That tells you something. Okay? I'm just saying. Buddy McBride said that he's read that the presidium behind President Biden involves President Obama, Ron Klain, Susan Rice, and Jill Biden. I don't believe Jill Biden is that savvy of a political operator to run in that circle, but certainly Val Jarrett is, and certainly John Brennan is, and James Clapper, and Jim Comey. All those people that were trying to remove President Trump from office, I'm sure they're part of the presidium. And I'm sure that the access that Nancy Pelosi has and many other people, and you voted for Nancy Pelosi, or at least people in San Francisco did, which tells you something about San Francisco, in my humble opinion. But all I can say is that clearly this president is not running the show. And I predicted this. I said, if you're voting for Joe Biden in 2020, you have no idea who you're voting for. Because he's not a president. He can't do it. He can't. And he's proven it over and over and over again. It's as simple as that. And all these people that said, yeah, we can get an eggplant elected president, well, congratulations. Congratulations. Good heavens. So the president has gotten the wonderful, benevolent largesse of the Washington Post, CNN, New York Times. However, things are changing. Washington Post, CNN, New York Times have fact-checked the president and claims he's made about his economic record. CNN's Daniel Dale, who's gone weeks, even months, without posting fact checks of President Biden since he took office, fact-checked 9 claims on Saturday that the president made during a DNC speech in Washington, D.C., November 2nd. 2 of President Biden's claims were about Social Security payments going up. That's only because inflation is through the roof. It has nothing to do with his policies. A New York Times report from November 4th said that President Biden was attempting to spin his economic record after he claimed, on my watch, for the first time in 10 years, seniors are getting an increase in Social Security. That increase was the result of an automatic cost of living increase prompted by the most rapid inflation in 40 years. President Biden hasn't done anything to make retirees' checks bigger. It was a byproduct of the soaring inflation the president has vowed to combat, said New York Times reporters Alan Rappaport and Jim Tankersley. The White House also posted a claim on Twitter before deleting the claim after readers added context to the claim with the platform Birdwatch. CNN also issued a fact check of Biden's claim about cutting the federal debt in half. President Biden seems to conflate the debt with the deficit, which was cut in half between fiscal 2021 and 2022. It's highly questionable how much credit President Biden deserves for even the reduction in the deficit. Biden doesn't mention that the primary reason the deficit plummeted in fiscal years 2021 and 2022 was that it had skyrocketed to a record high in 2020 because of emergency pandemic relief spending. It then fell, as expected, when the spending expired as planned. New York Times also deemed the claim misleading and said that President Biden left a lot unsaid, which, by the way, continues to coalesce with something that I say. Propaganda is not the science of adding things to the news. Propaganda is a science of leaving things out. Lies of omission are still lies, but you have to take these things as they stand. And once again, this is not a partisan broadcast. This is the news. I'm simply giving you the results of the analysis that I make every single day and have been for the last 21 years. It's going to be 21 years. Wow. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for being with us today. That's hour number 2. I just noticed that the show is flying by. And you know why? The show is flying by because I'm not broadcasting from Arizona or Pennsylvania. That was funny. Pat myself on the head. That's really funny. Let's see. By the way, it now seems, it took. Okay, Mike says this. It took Elon Musk buying Twitter to get the bandwagon of fact checking underway. By the way, Guam has elected its first Republican representative, a non-voting representative to the House of Representatives from the GOP since 1993. Is that a harbinger of things to come? We will see. This is the Wells Report. Stick around. Another hour is next. Okie dokie. All right, we're in the home stretch now. Stick around. Polls are going to close in an hour. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We report the news honestly and truthfully. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. In other words, we de-propagandize the news. I make commentary. That is not news nor propaganda. It's just my opinion. It's just what I think. And it's just as valuable as what you think. And that leads to debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. There is breaking news. This from the Washington Examiner. The Dominion voting machines used by Mercer County in New Jersey are experiencing significant technical difficulties, the county announced on social media today. In a post on the county's Facebook page, officials said that all the voting machine scanners made by Dominion and Mercer County were not working. All of the scanners, the voting machine scanners, the tabulators, they're not working. The county was working with the company to solve the problem. The Board of Elections, this is a quote, the Board of Elections has advised the county of issues with voting machines. Poll workers will be on hand to walk voters through the process. The board is working with Dominion, the machine maker, to resolve the issue. Does this mean we add New Jersey to the list of states that will somehow not be able to give tabulated results tonight after the election? Is that what we must do? And is that what we think? The county said the problem was not affecting the ability of voters to cast ballots and that no voter will be disenfranchised. The integrity of the election is intact and secure. By the way, that allusion to deja vu that I made a couple of hours ago, it was just made by the Washington Examiner. Are you guys listening? Good. Anyway, all ballots, the county said, would be scanned at the Board of Elections office, just as they would be at the polling location. Voters also had the option to cast provisional ballots if they so chose. Okay, so that's breaking news. Now, New Jersey. By the way, something I wanted to talk about last hour regarding President Biden, this was also breaking news. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit has given an emergency order to temporarily block the Biden administration's student loan cancellation plan. 6 Republican-led states sued to block President Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness program that would cancel up to $10,000 in federal loans per borrower and up to $20,000 per borrower for those who used Pell Grants in college. I wasn't aware you had to pay back Pell Grants. However, U.S. District Judge Henry Edward Autry ruled the states did not articulate the type of harm and rejected their legal challenge for the federal court. While plaintiffs represent important and significant challenges to the debt relief plan, the current plaintiffs are unable to proceed to the resolution of these challenges, Autry wrote in his decision. The 6 states, Nebraska, Missouri, Arkansas, Iowa, Kansas, and South Carolina, appealed the decision. October 21st, the Eighth Circuit Court granted a temporary block on the forgiveness plan until the appeals process plays out. If you have private student loans, they do not qualify for federal student loan forgiveness, but you can potentially reduce your monthly student loan payment by refinancing at a lower interest rate. Good luck on that as the Fed continues to raise interest rates across the nation. So there you go. By the way, the Biden administration is encouraging borrowers to continue to apply for forgiveness. After the appeals court temporarily halted the debt forgiveness plan, the Biden administration released a statement via the Education Department that encouraged borrowers to continue to apply for loan forgiveness. Although the administration can't officially cancel student loans during that halt, it said it is moving forward with preparing for forgiveness and collecting applications. And there you go. Time now for the latest circumstance regarding election breaking news. This is live news. This from 8 minutes ago. Maricopa County, the most populous county in Arizona, has tweeted to debunk a prominent Republican personality's false election day claim about voting wait times. This comes after Charlie Kirk, the founder and president of right-wing group Turning Point USA, tweeted today to his 1.8 million followers, 2-hour wait minimum at most polling places in Maricopa. Democrats running elections here knew this would happen. Traffic jam by design. Don't let them do 2020 again. Wait in line and vote. The tweet, according to CNN, was thoroughly inaccurate. Maricopa County elections aren't run by Democrats, as its election chief recorder Stephen Richer and his board of supervisors chairman Bill Gates are both Republicans. And the county's online wait times tracker showed that dozens of voting locations there had waits of under 5 minutes, including many with no waits at all. County voters are permitted to cast their ballots at whatever location they choose. Maricopa County said in its tweet response to Kirk's tweet, no part of the tweet below is accurate. The vast majority of vote centers are seeing wait times under 30 minutes, and whether by tabulator or by secure ballot box, all voters are being served. In Pennsylvania, it's the most closely watched, most expensive, perhaps most consequential Senate race in the country. The vote comes in for Pennsylvania Senate race tonight. One Fetterman campaign source describes the race as a jump ball, telling CNN the team for the Democrat candidate is confident that they closed out the race as strongly as they possibly could. Pennsylvania is Pennsylvania, but we feel like we've done everything they can, another Fetterman campaign source told CNN. The first source pointed to strong crowd attendance at a rally in Philadelphia's suburbs last week, despite the fact that the Phillies and the Eagles were both playing at the beginning of the Fetterman Strikes Back event. That was followed by an endorsement from Oprah Winfrey on Friday. She chose Fetterman over his Republican challenger, Dr. Mehmet Oz, a man she made a household name. Saturday, Fetterman appeared with former President Barack Obama for rallies in Democrat strongholds, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, with President Joe Biden joining the Philadelphia event. The news cycles we've been through in the past couple of days were really solid for us, the source said. And critically, the campaign believes that Oz undercut his closing message of rejecting extremism by appearing on stage with former President Donald Trump at the same rally as Republican gubernatorial candidate Doug Mastriano. However, the Oz campaign believes its closing message on the contrast of balance and extremism puts them in a good position in the race. The source tells CNN they believe that the message resonated with voters and helped define Fetterman in a way that stuck in the minds of those same voters. The Republican campaign is feeling confident as it waits for votes to be counted in Pennsylvania, believing it closed out the election on a high note with a large crowd in the Philadelphia suburbs on Monday night. Both campaigns are, however, very aware and prepared for the vote count to come in slowly. It knows it could take days. This also from 8 minutes ago, as all the Arizona campaigns are telling sides and CNN the same thing. Tonight requires patience. The source familiar with the GOP Senate candidate Blake Masters' campaign, source familiar with GOP Senate candidate Blake Masters' campaign thinking said that while his team is tracking the election day turnout numbers carefully, they won't know anything until the first release of numbers at 8 p.m. local time. A campaign source for Democrat Mark Kelly noted that who is ahead tonight may not win. The so-called late earlies, the mail-in ballots dropped off in person, will be a key factor they are watching in determining a winner, and that may take time to count. A spokesperson for Republican Kari Lake's gubernatorial campaign said they always expected to be down on the initial drop due to the drop that Kari Lake voters are voting in person today. Former President Donald Trump, whose shadow is long across the Arizona Trump-endorsed candidate list, is boosting Lake, his most devoted supporter in the battleground state. Lake spokesperson Colton Duncan confirmed that she spoke with Trump twice today. Both the president and Ms. Lake have teams very closely monitoring the issues in Maricopa County. Spirits are high, enthusiasm is off the charts, and our win will be huge. President Trump ended the phone call with, "Go get 'em, girl." No sexism there. Anyway. Officials in Maricopa County say they're resolving the tabulation issues at voting centers. Maricopa County elections officials said they've identified a solution for the earlier tabulation issues that occurred at about 60 voting centers. County technicians have changed the printer settings, which seem to have resolved this issue, according to the county elections department in a statement. The county said some of the printers at voting locations were not producing dark enough timing marks on the ballots. Only 20% of them had that problem, though. Interesting. The elections officials, the election office said changing the printer settings has so far worked at 17 voting locations. Technicians across the country are working to fix printer settings at the remaining locations. Democrat Ohio Representative Tim Ryan's camp said they're seeing high turnout from the cities and suburbs, which a campaign source called promising for the Democrat representative. The source said they also are encouraged and excited by hearing anecdotes on the ground of Republicans who have crossed party lines to vote for Ryan, which he will need in order to claim victory there in Ohio. Ryan himself continues to express optimism about the race, texting CNN, "Gonna win." Meanwhile, the J.D. Vance campaign also said they're feeling good and have seen a lot of great energy on the ground, with a campaign source saying that voter turnout has been coming in droves across the board in key areas. So President Biden has spent the day behind closed doors, checking in regularly with his political team, which is set up in the building across from the West Wing. He's made calls to top Democrat officials, both to thank them for their work and to ply them for info about what they're seeing. President Biden is very aware there's no pathway to hold the House, but he has asked about specific House Democrats he campaigned for, according to one advisor. He does, however, remain optimistic they can hold on to the Senate, even as he's aware it may take several days or longer due to a possible Georgia runoff to know for sure. One thing advisors are assured of based on their conversations with the president, regardless of how the night goes, he remains steadfast in his administration's agenda and direction. There is no pivot. There is no shift. It's full speed ahead. It's part of the reason that Biden advisors circulated a polling memo this afternoon to top allies highlighting what they view as evidence the Biden agenda remains largely popular in isolation. Okay, it's an interesting choice of words. They're very aware the blame game is about to commence in a major way and are working to insulate the president from the arrows that will be flying his direction in days ahead. Let's see. There is one new update. Let me see what that is. Let me reset this. Okay, here we go. Exit polling. Voters are unhappy with the State of the Union and largely negative on President Biden. This from CNN. Voters in this year's midterms are broadly unhappy with the state of the nation and hold largely negative views of the president, Joe Biden, according to the preliminary national results of the exit polls conducted for CNN and other news networks by Edison Research. So that's the latest on that. Yeah, this is going to be another one of those, isn't it? That's the very latest live updates from CNN. Coming up, the president, who just said that his agenda remains intact and full speed ahead, also had something else to say about the possibility of working with Republicans. And I got to be perfectly honest here. You know, this double down thing that the Democrats do on a regular basis, I think has run its course. It's just my opinion. You can't double down on what isn't working. You just can't do that. And if the president does, just as President Clinton said to the leftists pushing him, he will lose the next election. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in a moment. This is the Wells Report on Election Day. A very important election day, make no mistake. The most consequential midterm election in my lifetime, tonight. By the way, in case you're wondering, the polls are going to close in approximately 42 minutes. 42 minutes. Then let the games begin. Let the games begin. So we have a chat room. If you want to reach out and say something, you're certainly welcome to do so. You can do it a couple of different ways. The chat room on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. If you're watching on Rumble and Patreon, send me an email. thewellsreport@frontier.com. thewellsreport@frontier.com. And if you do that, make sure in the subject line you put the name of the platform that you are seeing this show on, so I know it's you. Get a lot of emails and so on, and I just got to say that I really want to hear from you, and I really want to interact. So let's do that. All right, so we have lots of leftists and even progressives watching this broadcast. One of them is a young guy in college. His name is Langston. He's living through his salad days, but occasionally he says something that requires a little bit of attention and consideration. And this time he said this: Republicans have failed to prove they can lead. And I got to be perfectly honest with you, there's some real validity to that statement. You know, I've been saying this entire election season as more and more information came to the fore that said the Republicans were likely to have a successful evening this evening, that remember, these people are Republicans, okay? And these people, being Republicans, will indeed find a way to stop and cease a lot of this. They will find a way to work with the president. I promise you on that. By the way, we just got a little thing here. The polls close in 2 hours and 42 minutes here in Texas. But the first polls in the nation now close in 39 minutes and 20 seconds. 39 minutes and 20 seconds. Ooh, buckle your seatbelts. Buckle your seatbelts. That's all I can tell you. Okay? That's all I can say at this point. And it's my sincere hope that indeed the best thing happens for this nation. And the people of the United States are the only people that know that. And we should trust them, I think. All right, so the President of the United States has made some statements in a place where there were not supposed to be any cameras. And the statement was blunt. And the statement was dire. And I'm going to bring that to you right after the break at the bottom of the hour. And yeah, you're going to be at 6, not 7. And the polls in Texas close at 7. Okay? I'm talking about on the East Coast. So polls will begin to close. This is according to Fox News. The polls will begin to close in 38 minutes and 10 seconds. Okay? So that's what's going on. Pass the word differentiate between rhinos and Republicans for your audience that may not understand. Well, yeah. Remember that the annoying reality about the Republican Party is that the Republican Party seems to exist to facilitate Democrat policy moves. They are not real good at being able to lead. Langston's comment a little while ago, the Republicans haven't proven they can lead. The greatest example, the garbage involved in overturning Obamacare. Now, whether you agree with Obamacare, that's not the point. The Republicans said that they were going to overturn Obamacare 73 times when they had a chance to do it. They got a chance to do it, and they muffed it. They absolutely muffed it. And COVID-19 proved beyond any measure that the government of the United States has no business having anything to do with the health care of Americans. Okay, so just understand, this party is capable of nothing. And they have practiced nothing a lot. Back with more in a moment. This is the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report, finishing up the broadcast in this half hour, bringing you all the very latest. And there is some interesting news on this exit polling that CNN is doing. And this is courtesy of Drudge. Let me get it for you. Let me get that for you. Please stand by. Okay. This is coming from CNN. I reported it a second ago, but there's a more comprehensive readout on the exit polling that they've been talking about. Voters in this year's midterm elections, this, by the way, through Drudge, CNN reports that voters in this year's midterm elections are broadly unhappy with the state of the nation and hold largely negative views of President Joe Biden. This is according to preliminary national results of an exit poll conducted for CNN and other news networks by Edison Research. At the beginning of this show, I pointed out that 70% of Americans are unhappy with the way the nation's going. That's borne out in this exit polling. More than 7 in 10 said they were less than satisfied with the way things are going in the country, with about 1/3 saying they're not just dissatisfied, but they're actually angry about it. Biden's approval rating, and this is where you see the bias, I'm pointing this out. This is from CNN. Biden's approval rating stands at about 45% among voters in this year's election, nearly identical to then Donald Trump's 45% approval rating 4 years ago among 2018 midterm voters. Now, remember, the president took some losses in the 2018 election. And by the way, once again, the standard of propaganda is to leave things out. His overall approval, President Biden's overall approval, may indeed be at 45%. But on the economy, he's way underwater and in the mid to lower 30s in approval. And the other things, same situation there. So once again, CNN is propagandizing to a degree. Just shy of half the voters, let me get back to this. Voters in this election were more than twice as likely to strongly approve of President Biden as they were to strongly approve of him. Just shy of half voters this year say that Biden's policies are mostly hurting the country. 36% say the policies are mostly helping, and the rest say they're making no difference. Many voters didn't see their congressional vote as a referendum on the president. Close to half said that President Biden was not a factor in their vote, while 18% said their vote was to express support for Biden. 18%. 18%. And about 1/3 said that it was to express opposition to him. If this holds, this is going to be an incredibly bad day for the president. And the president has made that abundantly clear in a conversation that he had in a place where there were supposedly no television cameras. As if Democrats needed any more convincing, today's midterm elections carry enormous stakes. President Joe Biden offered a bluntly dire assessment during a fundraiser last Friday in Chicago. Now, this is also being reported by CNN. Quote, this is from the President of the United States. Quote, if we lose the House and Senate, it's going to be a horrible 2 years. The good news is I'll have a veto pen. As reported on this broadcast earlier today, the president has said that his agenda remains intact and it's full speed ahead. Well, we shall see. After 2 years of Democrat control of Congress, a change in leadership in the House or Senate or both would thrust Biden's presidency into an entirely new phase. President Biden himself has been projecting optimism in the final days of the campaign, but reality is setting in for Democrats as their majority rule in Congress could soon end. And Biden's ability to get his top priorities passed could go with it. White House officials have begun pointing out their losses aren't likely to be nearly as bad as previous midterm wipeouts, including in 2010. They say the fact that Democrats have a fighting chance at all is a positive sign for Biden. Wow. But his advisors privately acknowledge they don't see a viable path for Democrats to hold on to the House majority, although the president and his senior team are starting the day with the view the prospect of Democrats holding on to the Senate is real, even if it's one that may take days or longer to fully realize. While with the intra-party blame game set to boil over in the weeks ahead, the White House moved today to separate Biden's agenda and the president himself from the list of targets. The White House circulated an Election Day memo to allies. More than 24 individual poll results, they say, underscore the popularity of key individual elements of the Biden agenda, ranging from his cornerstone legislative achievements to his actions on student loans, marijuana, and his administration's response to COVID-19. Okay, let's spend a little bit of time talking about that. Cornerstone legislative achievements. His cornerstone legislative achievements passed with 0 Republican votes. 0. Now remember, the Republicans are playing politics here. The Republicans are playing politics. Once again, before they had the power to overturn Obamacare, they said 73 times that was their highest priority. When it got time to actually do something about it, they did nothing. Obamacare still remains the law of the land. And Republicans are famous for things along that line. I'm going to point this out. The Republican Party it's not going to be a horrible 2 years for the president, even if the Republicans win the House and the Senate. The reason is because Republicans will find a way to work with this president and find a way to give him victories to essentially rehabilitate his presidency. And by the way, that happened with Bill Clinton. You know, the contract with America, which was wildly successful, was also something that was, I consider to be, kind of the most productive time that President Clinton had beyond his first term. And so what you have to understand is that the Republicans will work with this president. And at least that's just my opinion. Maybe it'll change. But I'm not interested in the food fight in Washington, D.C. I'm not. Never have been. I think it's ridiculous. I think what's going on in Washington is reprehensible. But I'm going to say this. That if you believe, if it's possible that the Republican Party is going to do something different, it's going to signal a change in politics in Washington that is absolutely necessary, again, in my view. These parties need to be adversarial. Bipartisan rule means rule by the political majority. And neither side has proven that they can adequately lead a nation that will please Americans. They just haven't shown it. Because the politics to them, I guess, is more important than what we, the people, have sent them to Washington to do. And if there's anything in this election, take away the president's gaffes, take away the president's infirmity, take away any of that, and all of it if you want to. The simple case of the matter is that people of the United States are unhappy with the state of this nation. And that is a bipartisan legislative effort. And we have to have adversaries working to the benefit of America. It's like this. You have Democrats here. You have Republicans here. They should be at odds with each other all the time. But the third part of that triangle, Democrats, Republicans, is the Constitution and Bill of Rights. That is the rallying point all Americans should and must agree on. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, again, the Democrat Party, in my opinion and in my observation, operates at loggerheads with the Constitution. And the Republican Party essentially ignores the Constitution. All of these things that we've seen this government do have had Republicans involved. And simply, they are not able to stop this onslaught of leftist policy. They have tried, but they've been circumvented. You know, the laughable Inflation Reduction Act is nothing more than the Green New Deal. And so once again, this ability for the Democrat Party to flank, circumvent, make fools out of the Republican Party, in my view, can't be something that the Republican Party has that they're completely unaware of. So what does that mean? That means there's a degree of complicity in it. That's what it means. You got to get in there and fight. And these guys don't. Oh, they put the political theater out there, the slap fighting, and oh my God, there's a terrible human being. But the president himself has laid the gauntlet at the feet of the Republican Party. The Democrat Party has said that people like me who voted for President Trump twice are terrorists, bigots, fascists, and now Nazis. In fact, a Democrat pundit said that Republican women were cockroaches voting for Raid. Sunny Hostins on The View. And so if that isn't enough to convince the Republican Party that this Democrat Party just absolutely holds nothing but ill will toward the America that most Americans want, 70% unhappy with current policy, and 30%, over a third, actually angry about it, that should tell you something. It should tell the Democrat Party something. And it should embolden the Republican Party to do something that they are ill at ease at doing, which is taking command and start moving the country in a way that drops that 70% to something far, far lower. We know it's possible. We do. We've seen it ourselves, and we must see it again. It is essential. It is essential. These political parties need to start doing the business of the people of the United States. The America First agenda, as elucidated by President Trump, should be the actual mission statement of the federal government of the United States, and nothing else. Everything the government does should be to the betterment of the typical American. Notice I didn't say the typical Democrat or the typical Republican. I'm talking about the typical American. And that's not what we have. And we better get it back. Today is a day where we could possibly do that. Yeah. And so let's see. Let's get back to the some of this here. Gary says it's disturbing that President Biden's approval rating isn't zero. Margie says, God bless America, praying for every patriot running for public office. Me too. Margie says, if they lose the House and Senate, we'll have our country back and away from these corrupt, immoral politicians. Also hoping the squad gets ousted, said Gary. I don't think they're going to get ousted, but I think they're going to take some hits. Certainly in the blame game that's going to follow this election. If it plays forward, there can be no doubt that the progressive wing of the Democrat Party is responsible for most of their misfortune. Mike says, who controls the Senate is the big story, more than how many seats the Republicans have in the House. Margie says, we, the Patriots, are sick and tired of tyrannical government that's destroying this great country. Mike says, rhinos, Republicans in name only, are not trustworthy. Margie says, Obamacare is an abomination. True. It absolutely is. And the simple case of the matter is COVID-19 proved it. House can overturn President Biden's vetoes if we have a 2/3 majority. Yeah. Margie says this puppet of a president needs to go. 2/3 from both houses required for a veto override, I think that's true. What the left won't admit is that if we can be in charge for a while, they'll benefit from it. We were doing so well getting it going again, then the China virus hit. Yeah. Let's see. Republican Party has changed. We're not going to take it anymore. The rhinos will be ousted, and we are going to be a Republican great country as we should and will be. We are children of God. We are conservatives with morals. Rick, let's see. JD is not being carried on the radio. That's true. I don't have a radio station right now, so that if you're in Texas right this very minute, call the radio station near you, the talk radio station, said, why isn't the Wells report being cleared? That would be a great question. Let's see. I got to go back and reread the Constitution, said Gary. I'm rusty, but I thought we just needed a 2/3 vote to beat a presidential veto. The Republican Party is awake and knows what we need to do. We're sick of all the BS that we've been going through. Cannot allow it to ever happen again. Yep. There you go. This is the Wells Report. Back with more coming up in just a couple of moments. You stay right there. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. There was a debate on what it takes to override a presidential veto. It does take a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress. And Gary Abshire was, shall we say, enlightened by Mike Renouille that it does take 2/3 of both houses to override a presidential veto. And then Gary says, damn it. Then Mike Renouille, in this beautiful humility that he often shows, says, Schoolhouse Rock serves me even to this day. Conjunction. Oh, that's a different thing. Yeah, I'm a bill Sitting on Capitol Hill. Oh, yeah. Schoolhouse Rock. I've actually played those on this broadcast because they're so good. They are so good. All Biden vetoes will just be pouting and tantrum. Yeah, I need to watch more Schoolhouse Rock again. We all do. We all do. That was good stuff. Alice Stewart is a CNN political commentator. She's a communications consultant. She's a veteran senior communications advisor on numerous presidential campaigns. And she writes the following. This on CNN. This is an opinion piece. Every election is a marathon, not a sprint. Over the course of the campaign, candidates cover many miles, face countless challenges, and hope to outrun the competition. We are now in the final day of the 2022 midterm elections, and the momentum appears to be on the GOP side. According to a recent ABC News Ipsos poll, voters trust Republicans more than Democrats on top issues like the economy, inflation, and gas prices. We reported that poll here on the Wells Report. While President Biden has promised to restore the soul of our nation, many voters are more concerned with their finances. With President Biden's approval ratings in the low 40s, it's clear voters feel the president is out of touch with their everyday struggles. A quick note here. This very same news network reported that President Biden's approval rating was 45%. Ms. Stewart is saying that it's in the low 40s. That would be below President Trump's approval rating that they quoted in the article that I just read to you, for whatever that's worth. I missed the camera. Sorry about that. By the way, it's clear voters feel the president is out of touch with their everyday struggles. Grandiose rhetoric about the democracy falling are falling flat as the economy comes close to flatlining. Alice Stewart says, let me repeat what I often say. There's no widespread voter fraud in the country. Joe Biden is our duly elected president, having won the 2020 election. The January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol was wrong. Those who believe otherwise should face some level of scrutiny. The problem is people in flyover states cannot afford the luxury of casting a ballot to feed the democracy is in peril narrative. They have to feed their families. As I mentioned this week on CNN, people are more concerned with money in the bank than democracy on the brink. In the latest CNN poll, 51% of those polled said the economy and inflation will be the key issues determining their vote. That's 51%. Abortion, 15%. Voting rights, election integrity, 9%. Gun policy, 7%. Immigration, 6%. Climate change, 4%. Crime, 3%. That means President Biden's speech on democracy this week was a good message, but bad timing with just days to go before the midterm elections. Meanwhile, Republican candidates have focused on issues that are top of mind for families and voters across the country. Lowering the prices of food and fuel, keeping communities safe, investing in education. Senator Rick Scott of Florida, the head of the National Republican Senatorial Committee, made a closing argument on Friday for what a Republican Congress would do about inflation. He said, step one, we've got to do in government what families do. You live within your means. On top of that, we've got to figure out how to produce energy in this country safely. We know how to do that. Kevin McCarthy also outlined the GOP plan to fight inflation with his commitment to America. His plan includes curbing wasteful government spending, implementing pro-growth tax policies, and making American energy independent to reduce gas prices. McCarthy also outlined a plan to address safety by supporting law enforcement and securing the border to combat illegal immigration. Given poll numbers we're seeing, I expect the GOP to regain both the House and the Senate. This is a CNN Harvard contributor saying this. Some Republican candidates are closing the gap on their opponents in key Senate races. I suspect this is due to the Republicans' focus on the issues that are top of mind for voters. In Georgia, Republican candidate Herschel Walker is in a dead heat with an incumbent Democrat Senator Raphael Warnock. Walker's closing ad addresses massive inflation and concerns about crime under the current administration. And in a statement to the Washington Examiner, he said, Raphael Warnock and Joe Biden have made the lives of Georgians worse than they were 2 years ago. And there's more. Go to CNN.com and read this opinion piece by Alice Stewart. clear-eyed vision from the Democrat side of the American political slate. It's a good piece. And so, in a matter of hours, this nation may indeed take a new shape. On my way out the door at the end of this broadcast, I want to say this. At your dinner table tonight, as the results are rolling in, pray for our nation's leadership, all of our nation's leadership. Let them be clear about what must happen next. This has been the Wells Report. God bless you and yours. I'll see you tomorrow. All right. And there you go. And the polls will close in a little over 5 minutes. At least the beginning polls will close in a little over 5 minutes. Our nation will change. Let us pray that it changes for the better. God bless you in your endeavors. God bless your family. Hang in there. We'll be okay. We will. I promise.